Hey, thank you. Hi, I'm really excited to be here to talk about this brand new service, AWS Single Sign-On. My name is Haran Murugesan, Senior Product Manager at AWS. Agenda for today, I'm going to start with a little bit of a background on the challenges customers face today to manage access to cloud services. Then I'm going to introduce the single sign-on service, um, and then I'm going to talk about pricing and availability and a demonstration. Just to enable a better understanding of the service, I'm going to be following the show and tell model. So just I will be jumping back and forth between the tech and the demonstration um, to help you guys follow along easier. Let us start with a little bit of a backdrop, right? How customers manage access to multiple AWS accounts, right? Customers today use S3 buckets, Amazon EC2 instances, Lambda functions, and database instances and whatnot, right? And they need to provide access to these services to their developers and who are employees, and the best possible way the customers have been doing so far is define a set of permissions on who can do what and attach those permissions to roles or users or groups, and master the users in the AWS accounts as IAM users themselves, right, and manage those permissions. This works very well. This is the standard access management problem, right? It works very well. But again, let me add a little bit of more complexity to this. Like, for example, large customers and enterprise customers typically come with some sort of a directory service of their own, where they have mastered their employee users and groups, and they want to use those directories to control access to AWS resources, if you will, right? So yeah, it is possible today with various different federation technologies such as SAML and OpenID Connect. So that enables them to bring in the users from the corporate directory stores into the AWS accounts, if you will, right? Um, as the business scales up, right, um, there is a need for multiple departments using different AWS accounts, right? And not only for multiple departments, the same departments want to use AWS accounts for different purposes. Um, what uh, what happened to be like a single account problem kind of quickly the complexity increases in terms of managing access to the users in each one of these accounts and the policies in each one of these accounts and how to manage access to who gets access to what resources in this account, right? Not only that, in your enterprise ID setup, you also typically manage access to other SaaS applications as well, and that you want to manage access to. That's uh, typically requires running some sort of a single sign-on solution, right? And then using that solution like a general purpose single sign-on solution to connect various different cloud services and manage access to these cloud services from the general purpose solution, if you will, right? This typically requires either you spin up your own single sign-on solution or you buy some sort of a general purpose single sign-on solution and integrate with these services to manage access, if you will, right? We are many of you are already doing that, and you're all aware of some of the challenges of these approaches, right? I'm going to walk you through some of the challenges and how AWS Single Sign-On can solve some of these challenges, if you will, right? Starting with managing multiple AWS accounts, what started out to be like a single account access management problem with multiple AWS account, you need a scalable solution that helps you um, easily manage access to multiple AWS accounts and easier way to kind of control who gets access to what account and be able to audit access to who has access to what account, right? And with the enterprise directories, right? You really need an easier credential management in a centralized way. You need to impose security controls and whatnot, right? And the same thing applies to business applications as well. It's kind of takes time and effort, and it's expensive to manage access to business applications, right? These solutions are hard to set up, operate, and manage, if you will. Okay, let's start with managing multiple AWS accounts, right? Um, Customers find it difficult to maintain the list of AWS accounts to begin with, right? So bringing all of those accounts into like a central, what do you call, a repository. Some people use still spreadsheets and stuff like that to manage manage the list, if you will, right? General purpose accounts, SSO solutions treat AWS accounts as separate applications, and they don't integrate deeply. So you would have to do a lot of legwork in terms of managing this as one single integral entity, and and you would have to set up each and every account as as a separate application that requires cutting and pasting configurations between the different accounts. When you are adding the new accounts, you got to repeat the same process over and over again. And you need to set up roles in each one of these accounts. And when the roles change, the permission policies change, you end up repeating the setting up these roles again in all of these accounts, if you will, right? And then managing access to the users, it's also difficult to kind of control access to who has who can access what account. Customers sometimes end up managing those accounts locally into multiple AWS accounts, if you will, right? And that brings us to the next challenge, if you will, right? So if you do not have a centralized way of controlling access to multiple AWS accounts, what happens is that many customers have different user populations mastered in different accounts, and there is really no central way to kind of know who has access to what account, and that kind of gives to blind spots, right? Gives rise to blind spots, and when the employees leave and the new employees join, you want to be able to kind of make sure that you have the correct people having access to the correct accounts all the time, right? And those things, if they are manual, it's very difficult to keep those things in sync, if you will, right? So this kind of sometimes it ends up exposing some of the critical business data for unauthorized access. Just the fact that it's a lot of manual work. It's difficult to keep up and prone for human error. Right. Access to business applications. Setting up access to business applications typically requires you to understand the nuances of the configurations, right? I mean, you need to learn about the technologies involved, such as SAML, and you would have to set up this configuration, learn about what are all the parameters that the certain application supports. And sometimes it takes days to get your heads around one application, and some of the applications requires back and forth communication with the application vendors themselves, right? Um, and these application configurations also keep changing, so you got to keep monitoring these applications for changes to avoid any downturns to your to your applications, right? Uh, Challenges: hard to set up and manage. Prepackaged solutions typically require a lot of management work, installation, and ongoing configuration work, right? Uh, and you are responsible for setting up for high availability and security of the solutions, right? The upfront investment cost and ongoing management cost will kind of bog you down, if you will, right? The visibility into who has access to what accounts and what applications and stuff like that. You want to get a report of that. It's really difficult. You have to reconcile um, data from multiple accounts, and internal directory and reconcile them to just make sense out of your security posture, if you will, right? Um, and not only that, it's hard for administrators and users to keep track of the application access details themselves, right? You would have to sometimes memorize the URLs or put it in a bookmark or put it in some sort of a text file to remember those things, right? To sum it up, right? Managing multiple AWS accounts requires effort, right? And and you know you you really need a centralized security control to to get a better sense of who has access to what accounts and at what level it will, right? And at the same time, you also need to manage access to your business applications in an easier fashion, if you will, right? And these single sign-on solutions are hard to operate and you know and hard to use sometimes, right? Introducing AWS Single Sign-On. AWS Single Sign-On is a managed service um, that helps you manage access to multiple AWS accounts and business applications easily, right? Um, it allows you to use your existing corporate credentials to enable your employees to access multiple AWS accounts and cloud applications, right? With one set of credentials, your security posture improves much better, right? Uh, and then AWS Single Sign-On has built-in access to configuration to many commonly used business applications, reducing your time required to roll out access to these applications drastically. Right? And it's easy to use because it's just you can just you don't need any hardware, you don't need any software. It's always available cloud application that you can get going at a matter of a few more clicks, right? Um, so let me give you a little bit of from here on. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the service itself, and this is the time where I'll just go back and forth between the presentation and the demo as well. Um, so you might be familiar with AWS Organizations. It is a concept. It's a service that we released about a year ago to enable customers to organize their AWS accounts, right? In which kind of mimics your business structure, if you will, in terms of organization units um, or departments, if you would like to call, and you can apply some sort of a common security controls across these accounts, right? That's one step toward in the right direction to get make the multiple management of multiple AWS accounts simpler, right? What AWS Single Sign-On does is it builds on top of AWS Organization, and once you connect the service to your AWS Organization, it can read all of your accounts and it can enumerate the list of accounts for you. It works with all your AWS accounts out of the box, right? And with the click of a mouse, you were able to set up single sign-on to all of these accounts automatically. And as the new accounts come in, and as you spin up new accounts, they all come under the single sign-on control out of the box, right? There is absolutely no setup needed, if you will, right? And you can also provision permissions into these accounts from the central place. Let me show you an example of that in the demo, right? Um, Here, I'm logging into my account. This is my master account. I have a AWS organization set up. Um, as you can see, I have a bunch of accounts under my AWS organizations. These are the accounts that I wanted to manage access to. Um, let me switch back to the AWS Single Sign-On service. You can, as you can see, AWS Single Sign-On service kind of lists all of your accounts within your AWS organization. You can even, drill down into the different OUs, organization units. You can see the accounts are arranged in that fashion, right? And then now you are kind of ready to start assigning access to your employees to these accounts, if you will, right? So before you do that, the first step that you have to do is set up a connected directory. AWS Single Sign-On works with AWS Directory Service and provides you with a list of directories that you can connect with. In the first release, we are supporting Microsoft Active Directory. So for the demo purposes, I have spun up a Microsoft Active Directory here. And I have created some users here and some groups here. And once I connect the directory, it becomes available. All the users and groups becomes available to Single Sign-On service to start assigning access. So let me start with this use case where I have a production account and I want to assign access to auditors, right? In this case, so I am going to assign access to a group of auditors. This is my Active Directory group. I just looked up the Active Directory group to be able to audit my production account, right? And I have selected the account, my production account. I selected the group, Active Directory group, which is auditors. And then I can limit at what level they want to get these auditors. They can get access to my account, right? So this is where the permission sets comes into the picture. Permission sets are a collection of permissions that you can create within AWS Single Sign-On. I have created a bunch of them, but what you can do is you can also create based on your security requirements using a free form text, like a policy language, right? Using the IAM policy language, or you can attach AWS existing managed policies, or you can do a combination of those to create those permission sets, if you will, right? But in my case, I have just created a bunch of permission sets. I'm going to use the security auditor permission set to provision to provide access to this set of auditors, if you will, right? So this is where the meat of all the action is, right? So once I pick the account and pick the permission set and pick the users or the groups, AWS Single Sign-On goes into each one of those accounts and sets up the required trust for Single Sign-On to work and sets up the required permission sets and marks the auditors group as a group that will have access to this permission set in this accounts, right? So once you spin up the service and set it up, you will get this URL that you can share with your employees where they can get access to these accounts. So from this user portal URL, I'm going to switch profiles and go back to go and log in as an auditor here. So let me show you that once you put in this URL to log in, right? So this is where your employees or the auditors in this use case will get access to, right? So here, this auditor is logging in with his regular corporate credentials that he uses to access his existing corporate applications. So he uses the same credentials to log in, right, into this portal, and this portal lists this user what level of access does he has, right? So you can see that this auditor has access to this account, production account, and at the security audit permission level, right? So once you click on that, you will be automatically taken to that account with that permission level, if you will, right? Um, so so that's how the end users will get access. Your employees will get access to multiple AWS accounts. If you have multiple accounts, they'll be able to get access to all of those accounts from here, from this central console. They can search uh, search for accounts if there are multiple accounts, and use that through by clicking through the account, picking the exact permissions that they want to use at that time, right? Um, Let me switch back to the presentation a little bit and kind of walk you through what we did so far. So, like I told you, like I showed you, we were able to connect to the AWS organization. We were able to see all the AWS accounts, and we were able to set up single sign-on to these accounts, um, and and we were able to provision permissions to all of those accounts by clicking, selecting the account and selecting the permission set and selecting the users, and the SSO service sets all of this up for you, right? And once the SSO service sets it up, the end users or the employees can access these accounts, and they can single sign on to these accounts using their corporate credentials from the end user portal, right? Um, so this is a pictorial representation of what has happened so far. We have a bunch of AWS consoles to which single sign-on can provision permissions to and enable single sign-on access for your end users. Um, and while you are setting up access, I showed you that you are able to filter access by OUs. And this setup was pretty automatic, and all your permission sets are stored centrally. So if there are any changes to those permission sets, you can just do them centrally, and you can provision them down to down to these accounts. Let me show you an example of that. Here, I'm going to my list of permission sets, right? I have created a customized permission set, right? And it has been provisioned to one account, um, like here, right? Um, so here, my business requirement has changed, and I want to attach more permissions to this particular um, this particular role, if you will, right? Um, so I'm attaching that policy. Once I attach the policy, the AWS SSO detects that, hey, you have this production account which this permission has been associated with. You want to push this new permissions into this account, right? Um, so once you do that, um, you can the account has been provisioned with the new permission set, if you will, right? So to kind of summarize, what AWS Single Sign-On provides is a central place where you can manage these permissions, and you can change the permissions and apply and reapply those permissions to any number of accounts managed from within AWS organizations, if you will, right? That's the scale that it allows you to get to. Define, apply, reapply permissions sets across all AWS accounts, right? Uh, Single corporate password works for all the cloud services. I showed you that you can connect your corporate directory. Once you connect your corporate directory, um, the end users can log in using their single corporate password, username and password, and with that, they're able to access all the AWS accounts, right? Not only that, with the single password, it kind of eliminates the possibility of users, having to memorize the passwords or writing it down in plain text and whatnot, right? It's just single password. It's all they need to remember, um, and and they can access all of these accounts, right? Access changes to cloud services as group membership changes in on-premise Active Directory. Um, let me talk to you a little bit about this group, right? Um, Customers with Active Directory, typically what they do is they group the users in in Active Directory AD security groups, right? When you set up the access in AWS Single Sign-On, you pick an account, you pick a group or a user, and you pick a permission set, right? And set up the access that way. And as the users move between the groups in your Active Directory, you don't need to change anything in AWS Single Sign-On, right? The end user access will automatically reflect which group they belong to, as long as you set up that group in the AWS Single Sign-On for the first time, right? And as the employees leave the department or leave the company, if they leave the department, you remove them from that AD group, or if they leave the company, you remove the employee from the AD, and access to all the AWS accounts that has been provided for the employees cut off right away, right? This protects critical business data from unauthorized access, right? Let me go a little bit deeper into the directory connection that I talked to you about, right? Let me switch back to the demo a little bit, right? So I showed you that I have connected a directory here, right? This is my managed Active Directory, right? Let me show to that directory and walk you through a little bit of things that you can do, right? So here is my directory that I have wired up to AWS Single Sign-On, where I have my users and groups created, right? You have a couple of options. If you have an Active Directory already in your on-premises, you can set up trust with that Active Directory, and you can set up one-way trust or two-way trust to the Active Directory. And with that, what happens is, you have one set of users and they get access to all of the AWS accounts from there, right? Not only that, many customers are using their own multi-factor authentication servers such as Radius compatible servers. So what you can do is you can hook up your Radius multi-factor authentication server to this directory. And when you do that, the end users, when they log in, right, they are able to not only authenticate with username and password, we'll be able to interject and ask for a multi-factor authentication token, which can then be passed on to this Radius server for verification, if you will, right? So this way, it's a pretty flexible system where you can bring your own Radius multi-factor authentication service and plug it into the system, if you will, right? Um, and you can also use AD connector if you do not want to do trust relationships, or if we have another mechanism called AD connector that you can use. AD connector is a proxy service that runs on AWS cloud, and you can configure that to talk to your AD, and from there you'll be able to provide a corporate authentication to AWS accounts, right? So here are the three options, right? We talked about managed AD. That is the Active Directory that I use to demo today. You can use the AD Trust model, or you can use the AD Connector model, in which it's just a proxy account that you create from the cloud into your Active Directory, right? So the best part is, right, you can use your existing business practices, such as your existing corporate Active Directory. You have your users and groups, right? And you've been you've been organizing users in form of business groups in Active Directory. What AWS Single Sign-On lets you do is extend that business construct into the cloud also, right? You set up the groups to map to a set of accounts, and as the users move in and out of the groups, the access to these AWS accounts automatically changes, right? It just mirrors your existing business processes. So let me talk a little bit about the business application use cases as well. Let me switch back to the demo. Um, from the AWS Single Sign-On console, you can also manage access to third-party cloud applications or SaaS applications, right? AWS Single Sign-On comes with pre-integration with a bunch of commonly used cloud services. And if you don't find your application in this list, you can also configure that as a custom SAML 2.0 application. In this case, once you get into, once you pick an application, right, and start configuring, right? So this application comes with a set of instructions. Here, once you click on the instructions, it'll exactly walk you through. If you wanted to set up single sign-on with Salesforce, here are the steps that you need to follow to set it up, right? So kind of like a guardrails for you to get this integration done pretty quickly, right? You don't need to learn anything about SAML and what are the nuances of the application. All of this has been done for you. It's kind of a paint by number kind of a instruction for you to follow to set it up. Typically, this involves exchanging SAML metadata between the app and the AWS SSO. So here is the SAML metadata for AWS SSO that you would actually download and provide to Salesforce in this case. Here is the metadata that you would actually get from Salesforce, and you would actually upload it here, if you will, right? Once you do that, your application is set up, and all of the instructions are provided to you for each and every application, customized instructions in a paint by number style, if you will, right? Once you set up these application, you can actually manage access to this application by going into the assign users flow, and you can click on the assign users, and it walks you through the same assignment flow we had before, where you can search users and groups from a corporate directory and assign access to the cloud applications, if you will, right? So based on the templates, we automatically populate many of the attribute mappings. But if you wanted to change any of the attribute mappings, you can do that as well. Let me switch back to the end user console and show you a little bit of a demo of how it would look like, right? Okay, here I'm going to log in as another user called Jay Adams. He has been set up access to some cloud applications as well. Let's see how that looks. So here, Jay Adams is logging in through the same end user portal with his corporate credentials. Once he logs in, he sees a lot more than the other user auditor, right? He has access to multiple AWS accounts and at different permissions levels at different accounts, and he can switch to this accounts as well. And not only that, he has been granted access to other SaaS applications as well. So just like he can click on this AWS accounts, he can click on this account or this Salesforce, and he'll be automatically taken to Salesforce, automatically logged into Salesforce. With that, let me switch back to the presentation. Configuration steps are instructed for you, and it's guided for you through step-by-step instructions. And we monitor the changes to this application configuration. We automatically take care of that configuration changes. You don't need to worry about the SAML nuances, right? If you don't find the application, you can always configure that application as a SAML 2.4 application, right? It's it's very simple, paint by number style instructions to pick a pre-integrated app. You follow the instructions, configure the app, and assign access, and the application is ready for access right away, right? You can, if you don't find the application in the catalog, you can actually configure that um, as a SAML 2.0 application. This applies to your internal applications as well that you build, that you want to provide single sign-on to. This also applies to your partners and suppliers who build these applications. And besides, when you are moving your applications from the cloud, from your on-premise to the cloud, single sign-on provides a seamless way for you to migrate the application over to the cloud. Right. So all of this comes with you don't need any software installation, you don't need any hardware setup, right? It's a managed service. You can just click through and get access to the service, right? There is no upfront investments or maintenance cost, right? It's a highly available service, and above all, it kind of provides you the visibility, the centralized visibility that you always struggle to have into the cloud services, right? The end user dashboard helps you to end user portal helps you to find all the applications and access those applications easily from a central place, right? And all the single sign-on activities and admin-related activities are logged in AWS CloudTrail. This provides you an increased visibility into SSO access to AWS accounts and cloud applications everywhere, right? Services GA already, it's available in US East Virginia region, and it's available at no additional charge. It's already included as part of your AWS accounts. And just go to the single sign-on console and get started. Thank you so much. And looks like we have time to pick and answer a few more questions.